What if sex was never meant to be confusing, just beautifully designed? Welcome to Sex Rebranded, the podcast that cuts through the noise with bold biblical conversations about sex, marriage, and holistic health. You'll hear the candid perspective of a true newlywed, gain practical wisdom from a mom of 3 young kids, and insight from a doctorally prepared nurse and menopause champion herself. Well, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. My name is Caroline. And I have Lindsay on today, and we are going to tackle a question that was asked on our Instagram. Thank you for everyone who put a question on our story. We will definitely do that again because we want to talk about the things that you guys want to hear, and we want to answer the questions that you have. So we'll definitely do that again. But the question was, how do you keep the spark alive in your marriage after kids, or specifically with toddlers, so young kids?
Yeah, that is a great question. And it's one that Nate and we've been married for 11 years. It'll be 12 years in October. And we've had three kids. So we've been through toddlerhood 3 times, and our youngest is 4. So I feel like we're finally ending that toddler season, kind of coming into that preschool season. And I mean, whoever asked this question, I love it because truly there's no perfect answer. There's no perfect way around making sure that in every moment, the spark is always alive, because there are going to be times when you are up at 2 in the morning and it's been a long night and you're just exhausted. But I really think that the spark comes wherever you bring the joy into your relationship. And joy looks a lot different from day to day. And I think even more so than always feeling in love, you learn that joy and a spark is so much more than just an emotion, more than just a feeling, but it's a connection. It's you realizing that your marriage never comes at the expense of your kids. And that's something that we honestly counsel a lot of couples in. I think there are several who get married, they have children, and they allow their kids and crazy schedules, whether that's kid schedules or work schedules or even church, to come in the way of their relationship. And so I think just recognizing you never let your marriage come at the expense of your kids, and you find ways to intentionally create joy. So it's kind of a long answer, but both of those are important.
That's a great answer. So how do you prioritize time together, and what does that look like? So I don't have any children. I wish I had kids, but I'm not in that season of life yet. But I'm very excited, and I am a firm believer that you can do a lot to prepare before it happens. So
You can.
but I've read a lot of books. I like following all the Instagram accounts. And the information I've gathered is that kids take a lot of your time. And how do you still make time for your spouse whenever you have tiny humans that you need to keep
Yeah.
alive?
Yeah, humans do take a lot to keep alive sometimes. I think of it as it's like there's 2 S's, right? It's like there's the spontaneity side that happens a lot when you are newlywed and it's just you two, and you can just create your own schedule. You can really do your own thing whenever you want. You can eat when you want. You can go out when you want. And then, that spontaneity you need to have to some degree in your marriage throughout. But there's also this other side of, even though we might not be able to be as spontaneous, we can schedule things and we can have a designated time, even if it's at home where it's just us. Something that we've really tried to drill into our kids is after bedtime, we put them to bed, we read them a story. That's it. We make sure they have their waters, and that's mommy and daddy's time at the end of the night. And our kids are now recognizing that, okay, like I have to get all my things done. I've got to brush my teeth because I'm not supposed to come out because that's time for mom and dad. And so I think just from an early age, teaching your kids boundaries in a healthy way, making sure that they know that they are such a priority in your life, but they're not always, and they cannot always be the number one priority. So coming up with ways to create and instill that understanding in them that they're so important and they're so valuable, but they also need to see that your relationship is just as valuable. And, at the end of the day, you and your spouse chose each other, right? Like you intentionally chose your spouse. You don't get to choose your kids' personalities. You don't get to choose what they look like, you know? And so the relationship that you have with your spouse is the most unique relationship more than anything else because it's the one that you choose. And so whether that is creating moments where you can be spontaneous or making sure that you create moments where you know, hey, maybe it's just we're going to put a movie on, or maybe we're just going to play a game. We're just going to play a board game, you know, on our bed. Those little things can truly help in those seasons where it feels like you're sinking. So, yeah.
I don't, so again, don't have children, but my husband and I are in a season right now where we are extremely busy. I have a lot going on with school, and he is working full time, and then he's also doing some contract work right now. So he's
Yeah.
been working around 60 hours a week. And like it definitely has changed the dynamic of our relationship. But like you said, like before, it used to be a lot more like we would just see each other all the time, and
Right.
we would it I don't even know if it I guess spontaneous is a good word for it, because we weren't scheduling time together. Like it just happened. Like we're eating
Yeah.
every dinner together, and like always able to have time spent together. But in this current season, I'd say something that I'm really grateful for, and this is something that we started off our marriage doing, but it has really been beneficial now, I think, is we take, and like this may seem crazy to some people. I don't know. I'll be interested to hear your perspective on this, Lindsay. But we have showered together every day
Yeah.
since we got married.
Yep.
And
That's us too.
okay, so I'm not crazy.
Sometimes you just need 20 minutes, right? No,
Exactly.
you're not crazy.
And like it's not even like this is like spicy time. Like it's
Right,
just
right.
like you have to
Let's
take a
catch up.
you have to shower every day. Or
Yes.
I mean, I guess you don't have to, but I personally
Yeah, it's a good
shower
idea.
every day. And like that's just something that I have to do.
Hmm.
And it's been so like helpful knowing, okay, we may not have been able to talk to each other all day, but for
Hmm.
2 seconds. But I know that like at the end of the day, when we're like getting ready for bed, like we're gonna take a shower together, and
Yeah.
then go to sleep together. And just that like 20 minutes, we talk the whole time.
Yep. Right.
And I think I would hope that that is like some, I don't know if every situation allows for that. Like, probably not every couple can do that.
Hmm.
It just depends on your routine and your schedule. But if your schedule allows for it, I think that's a super practical way to connect with each other, because it's something you have to do already.
Yep.
I mean, you're not going to get distracted by your phone or any other technology, and you can be really intentional with it. And like,
Yep.
if you are super busy and don't have any other time for a daily check in with one another, like that could be the perfect time.
I
So,
love that.
that is like my piece of advice that I think I can maybe offer. Does that
Yeah.
apply to like having young kids?
Absolutely. So I was
Okay.
just gonna say, you have to get so creative with your time. And yeah, like that was us this morning. Like, Sunday mornings are crazy. And it's like you just need a little bit of time together. And you're right, it doesn't have to be spicy, it doesn't have to lead to anything else. It can just be, okay, we have 20 minutes to connect. A lot of times what we'll do too is our kids are finally at that stage where we can go on walks and they'll ride their bikes, they'll ride their scooters. So we'll let them go on ahead and then we'll just stay back and we'll just talk and we'll just catch up, and we'll watch them, as they're 15, 20 feet ahead. So and I think the whole part of that too, Caroline, is you had to have a conversation to get to that point, right? Where it's like, hey, I know it's going to get crazy. Dinner time happens, bedtime happens. Like, let's, as a couple, come together and let's come up with what does our normal look like? And what are some ways that we can involve each other in our normal right now? And when you have that conversation, it lets the other person know that they're valued and that you see them and that you want to spend time with them. And I think oftentimes, accidentally, a lot of couples forget to do that. I think they forget to invite the other spouse into their day, just like you want to invite the Lord into your day. That's a prayer that I have every morning is, God, I just want you to be in my day, invite you into my morning. And I think we have to do that with our spouses, have to figure out creative ways to invite them into our day and share about what's going on, catch up, decompress, and then have some fun at the same time.
Yeah. How do you, okay, after you, I don't know if this necessarily applies to the toddler stage. Maybe it could though. So after you have a or what? After you have a baby and your body changes, how do you, like, I know there's a lot of changes that happen. So
Mhm.
how do you have those like conversations, like if you're feeling insecure, or just how do you handle all of like the changes that are happening to your body that may affect like your relationship with your husband?
Yeah. So I think as best as you can, if you can have, I mean, this might be, maybe too late for some, but if you can have some of those conversations before about, hey, this is what to expect, this is what postpartum is going to look like, then I think it just like you want to have those conversations or any conversation with your kids early. You don't want to catch them off guard and you want your spouse to be informed on what really is going to change there because a
Mhm.
lot does. And I think for every family, some moms that are stay-at-home moms, their schedule and maybe how quickly they're able to bounce back is different than somebody who jumps right back into work. So, yeah, I think a lot of honesty, a lot of vulnerability, and that's the beauty within marriage is that you are in this covenant and that is your safe person. There's security there. And so that's why it's so important to make sure that you marry the right person is you've had these conversations, you talk about I'm not going to look the same. For a while, I'm not going to be sleeping. So, I might be a little bit short on, my reactions. But hey, this is what I need from you. What do you need from me? And what can I do to help you? Because Nate had to go back to work a couple of weeks after we had our kids. And, we talked through a lot. And I think that helped him feel like he knew what was going on with me and my body, and I knew what he needed in return. And yeah, those seasons in life are hard. And I think especially the infant to toddler season, you feel like when you're in the middle of it, it's lasting forever. You're like, I don't know when this is gonna, because it's like a haze. It's like, oh my goodness, like everything is foggy. What's going on? What day is it? But at the same time, it's amazing when you can look to your left or your right and your husband is also like, "Oh my gosh, what day?" and then you can do it together because when you're off, chances are your husband is going to be there to catch you. And when he's having a hard day, then the hope would be that you would be there for him as well. And so lots of conversations, lots of talking. And the enemy wants nothing more than to silence us and to make us go further apart and grow further apart. He doesn't want us to conversate. He wants us to isolate ourselves and our feelings. And so we have to remember how important it is to involve our spouse in the little things because they care. And just like we want to be involved in their life, it goes both ways. So I think just having a lot of conversations, being honest, being open, being transparent, and that will go far.
Yeah. Are there any other super practical pieces of advice? Like, I loved your suggestion of going on family walks and then encouraging your kids to go on a little bit ahead where you can still see them, but they're
Hmm.
not like listening in on your
Yep.
conversation. And I assume then you probably still have interruptions often, but you're
Sure.
still trying to make time for each other.
Yep.
Um, and anything like that, you can take a moment to think too if something doesn't
Yeah.
automatically come to mind.
Yeah. And let's see. One of Nate's mentors, and I know that this might not be, even doable for every couple, but he said, we try to abide by the seven rule. We get away every 7 days on a date night. And then every 7 weeks, we do like maybe an overnight trip, and then maybe every 7 months, we do like 2 days. Every 7 years, we do a really big trip. So I think as much as you can, try to plan something in the future, even if it's a vacation, maybe a year in advance, something to look forward to. Because I think if you are just in the thick of parenting and you're like, oh, I have nothing, I think mentally, a lot of times, if you feel like there's not much to look forward to, then you can just kind of just go day to day. But if you and your spouse can come together, even if it's just a fun night out that you plan, start there. And then maybe find a trusted either grandparent or someone that you know to watch the kids for even one night. And even if you don't go anywhere, even if you just stay at home and are like, this is just going to be our time in our house. We're going to drop our kids off at the grandparents or aunt and uncle's house. You come back, have some time, or you go stay in a hotel. It's finding those little things to look forward to that you can hold on to, because you never want to lose that spark. You never want to, of course, lose the connection that you have, even though it might feel different on the day to day. So, yeah, I would say just look for things that you can get excited for as a couple. Look for those small date nights that lead to mini getaways, and I think that'll help get you past that season that you're in. Trying to think of any other advice here. Laugh a lot, make things funny. Sometimes things are not funny at all, and you have to make them funny.
Mhm.
So, like your kid throws up all over the van and you're on your way to church, you could get really upset and lash out, or you could just sit there and look at each other and just start hysterically laughing. Like we have done that before. So, and then it's like those are the moments that you look back on and you're like, that was so funny. Like I hated that happened. And in the moment, it might not be as funny, but I think sometimes people take life too seriously. And you forget to slow down. And this is me too, but a lot of people forget to slow down and soak up the season that they're in because it is so beautiful. The
Yeah.
other day we were on a walk and my mom looked at me and she goes, Lindsay, Jackson, who's our youngest, he's 4, he is growing up. And the little voice that he has, the little questions that he asks are not going to last for much longer. And it hit me. And it's like, even with your kids, it's the same with your spouse, is you guys are growing. And every year, even though it might not look like you have gotten a year older necessarily, but like that's time. And who knows the time that we have on this earth? The Lord is coming back soon. And I never want to take for granted the time that I have with my spouse. And I want to make sure that we're always having fun. We have the conversations that need to be had, but we take life sometimes with a grain of salt. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, just make fun of the moments that are hard and lean into each other, encourage each other, and you can get through anything.
I watched an Instagram reel and this couple, instead of, I don't know if you send Nate like reels
Oh,
that
yeah, all the
you,
time.
but I love funny reels. And so
Yes.
I saw this couple, and instead of just sending them to each other, they had like a saved album on their Instagram that they would save the
That they
reels.
would watch, right?
Yes. And then they project, so at night, whenever they were hanging out, instead of like,
Being on their separate phones.
or yeah, they would screen or project their screen on their TV, and then they would watch all of their saved reels
I
that they
love it.
to send to each other that day. And so instead of like, it became like a shared moment.
That is awesome. And then you get to experience it together. And yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah. Yeah, we would probably do that. Our 4-year-old just threw a monster truck at our big screen TV upstairs. So we are down to one TV that is not a smart TV. So last night we just pulled up Nate's phone and we sat in bed and we did the same thing. We watched all the videos that we had sent each other. But I think, yeah, it's easy to isolate. It's easy to do your own thing at night because you
Mhm.
are so exhausted, and you can recognize that. Like
Yeah.
you can take a moment to say, I am so tired, but you're both tired. You're tired
Mhm.
together. And so you have to get over wanting to do your own thing all the time. And you have to allow your husband to serve you as you serve your husband, and figure out, okay, what are the things that we can do together, because this is quality time that we need. And it'll be enough to get you through every day when you can do that.
Yeah. And then something else that I think is really important to do, and this also doesn't take a lot of time. It does take intentionality. And
Hmm.
again, this is something that it depends on your schedule and
Yeah.
your routine. Some of those things you can change, some of those things you can't. Like if you are working a different like shift schedule than your spouse, like
Yeah,
that's just really unfortunate.
it's hard. Yep.
And there's really nothing you can do about that unless you get a new job or like
Hmm.
change your schedule, which isn't the easiest. But if you're able to go to sleep and wake up at the same time, that is always best because
Yeah.
then you are awake at the same time and asleep at the same time, which sounds
Yep.
silly, but we only have so many hours in a day. And if you have a different sleep schedule, then that's like taking away time that you could spend with one another. But if you're on that same sleep schedule, if you could, and this is something that you could do either in the morning or in the evening, I think doing it in the morning is probably better. But if you could take just 2 minutes and pray with one another before walking out the door, I think
Yeah.
that can change your whole day because
Absolutely.
there's different types of intimacy that we can experience with our spouses. And
Hmm.
I think that spiritual intimacy is the strongest because
It is.
if you are talking to God together, then I mean, there's really nothing that can beat that because even
Right.
sex, like the whole point of sex is to be a reflection of the covenant that the Lord has made with us and through the covenant of marriage. And so like it sounds weird, but like sex was created so we can get just like a teensy bit of an
Hmm.
understanding of what it means to be have closeness and connection. But I mean, prayer, you are directly talking to God. And so
Right.
I that's something that I would recommend if your schedule allows it, and it can either be
Yep.
in the morning or in the evening, but I think that is something super
So
powerful.
important. Yep. And honestly, Caroline, as you're saying this, something that we've been wanting to do as a family. We've had some family come and visit us since, but my husband went to Israel a couple weeks ago. And one thing that they got to watch was a Shabbat. So they went to a Jewish family and they had their Shabbat Shalom dinner. And what was really neat, he was like, I am going to take this back to my family, but the husband prayed over his wife in front of his kids and read Psalms 31. So every Friday they would have Shabbat. They would sit down and they would read scripture together, and the Jewish husbands would read Psalms 31 over their wives. And Nate was like, how beautiful is that? That my kids get to see me praying over my wife and what that means. And I know we have talked about many of you that might not have schedules that align. Something that is wonderful about technology is this feature called voice memo. Nate and I do it often, but you can always voice memo a prayer. You can always um, just really voice memo your thoughts. But I think, going back to prayer, your spiritual relationship with the Lord should always be your first. It should always be your primary. They're more important than your spouse. But you're right. I think if you can involve prayer somehow every day into your marriage, even if it's a voice memo prayer, then
Mhm.
it's going to do wonders for your marriage for sure.
Yeah. The voice memo thing's a great idea. I've never thought of that before. I have
Yeah,
some
it's awesome.
I have some friends that use the voice memo frequently. I'm not a big fan of them, but I would rather call or text
Yeah.
opposed to voice memo, but we'll see. Maybe I might convert to using the voice memos one day.
Yes, it's great, especially if you have a spouse that's working and they can't pick up the phone, or
Mhm.
you have a lot to get across to them. So there'll be times that, we use that for our church and things like that so people can at least hear our voice. But
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, just a little tip.
A great idea. So, in our next episode, we are going to play the game MASH. I don't know if you guys have ever done that before, but typically you write like mansion, apartment, shack, and house, but we are doing a date night version of it. And I think the D is standing for dinner, A for activity, T for treat, and then E for extra. And you will see what
Ooh.
we get for our DIY date night in the next podcast episode, but definitely listen to that one and then we'll share some ideas for creative date nights to plan if you need some help in that department. But
I love it.
I think these were all really great ideas and If you guys have any other questions, make sure to DM us or email us, and we will answer them on the podcast.
Yes, I love it. This was such a good episode.
Lindsay, thank you so much for sharing all the advice and
Yes,
coming on and talking about this.
I love it. Yes, awesome. Thanks, Caroline.
Bye, everyone. Have a great day.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Sex Rebranded. If you have a question you want answered or a topic you want to be talked about on the podcast, send us an email at sexrebranded@gmail.com.